Crouch. Bind. Set.
Joe presents the House of Rugby, together with Guinness.
Islands in the stream. That is what we are on this week's House of Rugby, brought to you by Joe, together with our very good friends at Guinness. There's a reason why we've gone with that. Pacific Islands in the stream, because alongside James Haskell, who is feeling a little gentle this week, but we're not talking about that.
We're not talking about that.
A good, clean show.
Yeah.
Mr. Dan Leo, how are you?
Man, I'm good. Thanks for having me on. Yeah.
Very nice to have you on board. How is life? What's keeping you busy?
Mate, kids.
Yeah.
So I've got mate, I've gone back and after 5 years, gone around again for number two boys. So mate, 9 months. So not much.
Peace and quiet sleep.
And obviously old teammates, old friends.
Yeah.
Talk us through. Talk us through the early memories, the early meetings of the man on side. Because were you a young pup?
Was I? Yeah, I was quite young.
I was pretty much a stop filler for obviously you had the old guard that were moving on, getting a bit long in the tooth, Lowell and Lawrence and Joe Worsley, and then you had the new generation. Well, not so much now, but of yourself.
I have aged very well, thank you.
Reece?
Yeah.
Reece, Joe Launchbury when he was young. So there was a bit of a gap between those guys. So I came through for a couple of years, did a job to these guys already to
he was
to dominate.
Dan was awesome, lovely bloke from day one.
You mentioned him in the past, actually, as one of the guys you looked up to and enjoyed playing with, and.
Yeah, he was a top guy. Obviously, what he's done with the kind of Pacific Island stuff is amazing, really. But we'll come on to that later. But I remember him doing lots of extra tackling with me. Always let me tackle him, and he was like, "Oh, bro, do I have to?" I was like, "Come on, Dan." And then he'd just sit me down. I'd be like, "Again." But sit me down like, again, until I could tackle. I was like, if I could tackle Dan Leo, I could tackle most people. So his incredible hair that he had, and he used
which we've got actually in our photo. This week.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, wind resistant, but looking good.
Yeah, I don't think it gave me much on the field, but
get of a cult hero.
Every time I got smacked, you saw it. So, but yeah, mate.
But every time you bang someone, it went. But I tell you what was all the fans loved it, didn't they? Because you used to get all the Dan Leo hair hats stuff.
Yeah,
then you left and Ashley Johnson came in and they went with the hair thing.
Yeah.
Funny enough, no one ever went with my hair. No. What's left of it? I don't know why. A bit of an odd thing. But Dan used to give me taro. We were talking about before.
We were talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
What is taro?
It's a root vegetable from where is it grown?
So it's literally a massive yam, like a big potato, and it's it's like our staple food in the Pacific Islands, and it's really slow and slowly releasing carbs. So it's good in that way, and literally just I used to.
And
can you get it in the UK?
You can get it around the
UK?
army bases. There's lots of Fijians in the army bases here, so I get mine in Aldershot. I live in Isha and just go out there. Yeah, there's the shops have clued on. The Indians are clued on that if you live around where the Fijian population are, you're going to sell taro. So
well, I loved it. So
what does it taste of?
It's like just like a starchy yam, but you cook it in coconut cream, so it's obviously high calories. It was one of the things I was always interested in my nutrition, and I'd heard about this, obviously slow release, the fact it had properties that was responsible for why most of the islanders were huge kind of guys.
Yeah.
So I started putting it into my diet. I absolutely loved it. He cooked it up like a boss. Honestly, all he'd asked for was the pan cleaned. He'd give me a pan with a bit of tin foil over. I'd smash it all up, reheat it, eat it, and then I'd clean it up, polish it, send it back, and he'd hook me up again. It was kind of the perfect crime. And then I started cooking it when I was playing for the Highlanders.
It was a time it was actually when we would always play Leicester in the finals. I think 3 or 4 years we were playing Leicester every year, and Sean, they had loads of Islanders, and we only had myself and Trevor Leota had just finished. So Sean Edwards would dress me up in the Leicester kit and be like, "Oh, Dan's Alisana Tuolangi," or Dan Sarah Rambini, and and the boys would just smash me. So Hask would always
playing your role for the club. Good man.
We've all done that. When they hand you the bibs, like when you're bin juice as well, you're often everybody.
Right.
It was every week. The defensive coaches always dress someone up for something. They go, right, say for example you're playing. Yeah.
Who was the best player you've ever been in bin juice?
It's a very good point. Who have I been? I've been Jamie Heaslip.
Okay.
I've been Sean O'Brien. They were pretty good.
Yeah.
Trying to think who
out of the World Cup. Paul Shawnee.
I know. I'm very sad. Very sad for you, Sean. Top boy. I messaged him the other day. Hasn't replied. So a bit awkward.
Another bromance fall by the wayside.
another
he and Owen should chat things through.
Well, as soon as I finished playing, they've all pretended that all the pretense is gone.
Unfollowed?
That's it. No, I don't think he's unfollowed me. No. He's probably just in a bit of mourning, I would have thought.
Interesting.
But no, I've had a few people. I'm trying to think who. There's always a member of Team Binges who will always be that one player and have to wear a red bib and get hit all the time.
Yeah.
Or there'll be one
Who
player.
has taken the most hits in a red bib?
I'm trying to think who is the player that's been everybody. It's normally like someone who's like only a back who is super talented, who would have great footwork, or it's normally a number 7 from like a guy at Wasps called Matt Everard, who used to always have to be a number 7 who compete hard for the ball. So what happens in a normal training session is everything would be shoulders on, right, except the breakdown would be live. So you'd get one guy that would literally be cannon fodder. I remember when Matt Kovacic was involved kind of around the England squad. Yeah. He would be the opposition, so he'd play your Van der Fleur or your Sean O'Brien or your Richie McCaw, and he would be getting smoked the whole time. I remember there was Sinclair dislocated somebody's shoulder. Clifford, when he was when it involved in England, he was somebody. I think he had to be. We were probably playing France, and you always earmark a couple of players. Yeah. And it was always like, right, Eddie was like, right, if he goes over the ball, you clear him out. Typical Sinks ran in at 700 miles an hour and just dislocated his shoulder. And Eddie's like, Hess, mate, you're not competing much the ball in training. I was like, because you've got people like Sinclair and Genge who are completely insane running at the I'd rather not if you don't mind. I'll wait for a game.
Very sensible. We've got a lot to talk about. I'm really, really fascinated to have you on the show. We're sort of nattering away before we started rolling. I think there's some pretty punchy topics to get into. But before we do that, can we just sort of flick through your career and where did you get going? Where did you start playing the game? Born in New Zealand, grew up in Australia. Is that right?
I went to New Zealand. I was born in New Zealand. My dad moved from Samoa to New Zealand in the late 70s. Yeah. As part of a sort of a migration of industrial workers that went over there to New Zealand. And lots of us, lots of guys who were playing the Premiership were sort of descendants of that move. Yeah. Went to school at Auckland Grammar with
who won the big one last week, didn't they?
What's the big haka? The whole school did the haka.
2,000 kids.
So it's been their 150th celebrations. Year's celebrations this year.
But who do they play in the big game?
Actually played you. I think we played you guys. You were at Wellington, weren't you?
Yeah.
I came on a tour. And
I think
was your brother playing? Or did you have a brother?
No, I have got a brother, but you don't play. might be someone claims to be a brother. No, but I remember you did come and play. And I think, because how old are you?
Mate, I'm 36 now.
Legitimately, you're actually 45, aren't you? that old chestnut.
Passport or New Zealand passport.
So I remember when you came, the Auckland Grammar did come, but I was too young. So I remember watching it. Yeah. You boys, because you had, do you have Tuatupou playing for you?
We had Ben Artinga.
He was the
Isa Nafiwa. Yes, was in that side. We had some good.
That Ben Artinga, he was unbelievable.
Fumanu Sapolo played.
Fumanu Sapolo.
Do you remember
Doug Howlett was there when?
Did you remember James Gamble, who's one of the presenters at Sky?
I played with his brother. His brother Craig Gamble was in that side as well. Yeah, okay. So all the boys went through the school though. Yeah.
I'll tell you who you're thinking of, who looks like my brother. A guy called Dougie Harrison was playing 6. Would have been that guy. Looks a little bit like me, but he actually looks like Mr. Incredible. Yeah, he was a big. He's not.
So he hadn't been kicked out of school at that point.
I haven't been kicked out of school, and I've actually never technically been kicked out of school. I was suspended. Now welcome back with open arms. Thank you. Giving talks, opening other school buildings. So don't worry about it. It's fine.
How's the world come to?
Yeah.
So yes, grew up in New Zealand. Went to Auckland Grammar,
and then we moved again to Australia with mum and dad.
Where did you go?
To Queensland. And I hadn't really, it was probably the best thing that ever happened for my rugby career because I hadn't made any rep teams up until that point, and then turned up in Australia with a New Zealand accent and decent size, and they put me in the Reds Academy after a season there. So I couldn't even say I played particularly well. But,
who would you have been in the Reds Academy with that would have come through?
Again, lots of guys. Drew Mitchell was there, Digby Ioane, Greg Holmes, Horwell, Big Kev, lots of the guys. Peter Hines, who was obviously another Wallaby. I think of the second team, the Queensland second team, I think 13 of the players that year went on to become full-fledged Wallabies. Wow. The other 3 of us played for Samoa. So.
What an amazing place Queensland is to live and play in. It was such a cool.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, just really sporty, just outdoorsy and great. And the problem with Queensland is it's just that there's a hotbed for talent. Yeah. And all the NRL teams are just scouting all the time. So
were you ever tempted to do league?
I went down for a trial. When I first got capped for Samoa. I couldn't play for Queensland anymore for the Reds because you had to be eligible for the Wallabies.
Oh,
so
really?
at that stage I was a bit of a homebody. I didn't really want to fancy sort of moving away, and I went down to the Roosters where a guy named Ricky Stewart was the coach. And, they actually offered me a deal, but it was a 2-year deal. And the first year it would have just been sort of learning the game and playing reserve team. So I just I was 23 by that stage, so I thought just come over here, come join the boys at Wasps.
Yeah.
Didn't know any of them either when I first turned up.
Were you ever tempted to do Wallabies or All Blacks? Try out?
I was very close to playing for Australia A.
Right.
And I knew from a young age I was never going to be good enough for the All Blacks. So and then but moved to Australia and got the chance. I was in camp for Australia A, and actually Michael Jones rang me up, who was the coach for Samoa, the famous All Black flanker, and said, look, you're on the radar for us, but if you play for Australia A, you'll be ineligible. So within sort of 2 months from that conversation, I was playing for Samoa against Australia, which was my first cap.
Wow.
That
was that the game you won or not?
No, that was before then. No, we got thrashed, we got humped in that game. 75-7, I think. So so I was
welcome to the Testarino.
Yeah.
Ouch.
I remember because that was I was rooming with Trevor Leota.
Oh my goodness!
I'd never met him before that point, and flip, that was a crazy week.
Go on.
I won't.
Did he tuck you under his wing and teach you the ways?
But Hask knows what Trev was like.
I can't believe of your first international thing getting in with Trev. He's such a hero of a man.
He was a good roommate to have because he wasn't there for Monday to Friday. I think the only night he slept in the room was the Saturday night before the Sunday test.
Mate, he was. Thing with Trevor, I'm sure he'll come on with it. Just for the island mentality, he was so generous. Couldn't do more for you and everything else. There was a tipping point, and you were like, oh, probably just time to leave you alone now, Mr. Leota, sir.
By the side door.
I remember in training, he wasn't allowed to hit. Like if you ran straight at him or you were being an idiot, then he would just literally just a little shoulder drop and just end you. But then ordinarily he wasn't allowed to go around banging people because he was just taking names.
We're talking power on a different level. I mean, even for someone who is big.
Trevor was because he didn't really look like he should have been able to generate that much power, did he?
But
he wasn't really in. Well, by the end of his career, when I was, it was his last year of professional rugby, he wasn't in great.
He was a big man.
Fucking still killing. I remember Wendell Saylor. Remember the big, 110 kilogram
big Dell,
and he was ran straight at him and flipping heck. You never heard anything like it.
But the thing with Trevor is that he would practice his hitting on the scrum machine just because it was like that little dip and hit. I think he'd struggle to get away with some of those things now. Well, most of them now because of all the law changes. But I remember him trying to teach me and Tom Rees how to do it. He's like, no, do that. And I was like, I'm trying. And he was hitting the scrum machine or this sled and just folding it up. Me and Reese were hitting it with our little white boy shoulders, and it wasn't doing anything. But I'd only ever see him end people if you took a liberty. Like there's a young academy kid who was trying to step everyone. Like I saw launchers do it once. There was this one kid who just never turned up, but would always wait until these touch games on a Monday. So in most teams now they do conditioning games on a Monday, and it takes 2 days to get after a game. So especially some of the old fellas, we've got the conditioning games. We're like, bin juice are going mad. They're running around going, doing a step. And I remember this one kid steps on, launches, just lost his head and came out of nowhere and just buried him. It was in a touch thing. And everyone was like, thanks, launches, because he was embarrassing all the old people.
Takes his batteries out.
Yeah, and that's what Trev would do to people if you messed it. But that's when he had that Paul Strigen, Bobby Boucher, the rope. He had to go and live with Trevor to make sure that he stopped eating KFC, stopped not training and turning up. They sent Bobby to live with him the whole time to look after him and got him in the best shape possible. But then he would go to the end of go to the end of pre-season, disappear, not come back for 3 weeks for a range of, he'd be 3 to 4 weeks late, a range of excuses of, my kid's got asthma too, I've lost my passport too, I can't come back about 1,000 kilos too heavy. Then they spend the whole time. But I remember my first training session, watch him catch the ball, dummy switch, no look dummy, and then banana kick the ball over the top. And I was like, okay, that's our hooker there. He was on his day, he was the best hooker in the world. Incredible.
How did you end up doing end up at Wasps? Because you just said that you were you weren't that keen to leave.
Yeah, so it was through Michael, just through playing for Samoa. So Michael Jones was a head coach there, and he an ex All Black teammate of his, Craig Dowd, was our forwards coach at Wasps, and it just happened that I think I came in. So do you remember Johnny O'Connor?
Yeah,
Irish. He had broken his neck the season I came in. So they were horrendously. I can't remember what the circumstances were. I think it was in a game against.
Yeah, it was in a final or a semi-final. He got something called spinal shock, where he came on. Apparently, he gave John O'Connor, a completely mad, unbelievable player. Did a really rousing speech. Was like, come on! Ran out on the field. Took one hit. Was completely paralysed. Or something happened to him and got carried straight off again. And he was most embarrassed about the fact that he talked it up and then got folded up. But I think he'd given himself a spinal or something, so it took him a while to recover. But he did recover, and he came back. He came back.
Yeah. And then recently, I think he's been S&C coach for Arsenal.
Yeah, he's killing it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's where Jerry Flannery was for a while as well, wasn't he?
He was blown away. If you asked Johnny O'Connor about me, he was like, first kind of pre-season, I got called in with Johnny early on, and I think first session we were doing upper body, and I was tops off last set, and you could see him looking at me thinking, who the hell is this little
amazed you left it to the last set?
Yeah, it's always tops off last set as a rule. And he was like, are you all right, mate? Shirt off. He said, I've just never met anyone this lumbering idiot, tops off last set, but chatting away at him. Obviously he was from Ireland, used to people just not hierarchy and everything. I was straight away in there, so I think it'd be some interesting things to say about me. I think
you surprised me. Was it difficult though to make the journey when the time came, or did Wasps settle you in? And was it?
No, they were quite good, and obviously I had the stepping stone of obviously being raised in a Samoan family, but in New Zealand, so it wasn't and I was a bit older as well. I think I came over at 23, so it was
wasn't too much a shock.
So I didn't struggle too much. I mean, when I say I didn't struggle, there was still the basic things like getting a driver's license and even a TV license over here. I remember getting a TV, someone coming knocking around and saying, "Oh, have you got a TV?" Just sort of brushing them off. Nah, get out of here. And then going home and then coming back after World Cup in 2007, 3 months later, and being summoned to court for not having a TV license. So just little things like that. But it's
Christ.
But I was lucky in a way, with that connection between Craig Dowd and Michael Jones, and then we had Ian McGeechan there as well, who sort of took me under his wing, and Sean Edwards to a certain extent, sort of was like the father of all the stray kids, So me and Sips used to spend a bit of time with them boxing at 5 o'clock in the morning. So
really,
tell them the story about the boxing one. Why you had to do it every week?
Yeah. So he just so every, I think it's 3 days a week. Sean Edwards will just box, but he does it in his pants at 5 in the morning. I think I can't remember why I was in there. I think I was jet lagged. I'd just come back from somewhere, so I just thought I'll go into the club and just wait around for training, and got sparring with Sean. I've never boxed in my life, so he's got me in the gloves, and ended up, he was chasing me around the gym, just absolutely trying to knock my head off. And apparently he said, I had a good game that weekend, and he comes to me afterwards and goes, "Oh mate, I think that's the reason why you had a good game is because you've been sparring." So for the next 6 months, every 3 days a week, I had to meet him in the gym for sparring sessions, and I gradually got better. But flipping heck, I took some blows. I think three of my concussions over my five over my career have come from those mornings.
Quite useful with gloves on.
Yeah, but so we told the story about Sean with the in the pants, haven't I?
No. Have you?
Well, I can't remember. I don't know how many shows you've done, but so what would happen is we'd be in the gym, right? So the academy would be 6:45 weight session. Sean would come in, baggy shorts, boxing shoes, gloves, cup of tea, 7 tea bags in it, right? Put a sip of tea.
7 tea bags?
Yeah, a sip of tea, right, put it down, put his gloves on, get on the weighing scales, look at it, shake his head, go, ha, 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 right? All this mental boxing, right? Get on the weighing scales, shake his head, walk out the gym, take his shirt off, come back in, sip of tea, and if there's an academy kid there, he'd make him hold a Swiss ball next to your head, and he would honestly be punching the Swiss ball and your face a lot of the time, and you'd be like, and he'd be going, right, and then he'd get on the scales again, lose his shit, go, this is bullshit, walk out, take his shorts off, little pair of blue pants, right, come back in, right, load of noise, little sip of tea, go mad, go out the gym, come in, knob out, get on the scales, be happy with what you see and left. naked boxing. Honestly, and we're like that in the gym going, oh my God, there's that legendary player, Sean Edwards, he's our coach. He's like, he's got his dick out in the gym and he's boxing. It was amazing. But then he would, I remember he taught me once, he said, he'd heard I'd had a fight somewhere and was trying to show me how to diffuse the situation.
Yeah.
He's saying, what you want to do is you go for the handshake, right? You go, I'm really sorry. Then you hit him around the head, right, with the palm of your hand in the ear. But he was demonstrating it on me. Right. And I think part of it was to show me not to fight because I was an idiot. But also, he was hitting me and my ears were ringing. But obviously, you don't want to say, please, Mr. Edwards, sir, you're hurting me. He was like, mate, what you need to do is just go, listen, I'm really sorry. Whack! And I'd be like, what? I'd be like, I'm really sorry. No, come back, Hask, you're flinching. I'd be like, right, just go, mate, I'm really sorry, but I whack it again. I'd be like, I'd have to go off to sit in the change room with an ice bag on the side of my head.
Thank you very much, Andy, for the lesson.
Yeah.
Greatest days of your playing career?
Oh, mate, definitely those.
Bordeaux?
Yeah. To a different. I mean, France is always crazy in a different way, isn't it?
What was the culture change like?
I mean, Perpignan was, Bordeaux was relatively similar. I got to Perpignan, Catalan country. I mean, just remember losing a game and coming out, and just my whole car had just been keyed from all the supporters walking past it.
You're
Obviously,
kidding?
Perpignan, emblazoned all over the cars. So yeah, I was part of the team. We had a good team, and we got relegated in 2000. Must have been 2013, and weren't allowed into any of the restaurants in Perpignan. I remember walking with a group of, I think it was James Hook and Luke Charteris actually, and trying to get in for lunch, and they were like, just come out and we're closed. It was 12 o'clock, they just opened, and it was full, it was packed in this air, and it just happened from restaurant to restaurant. So in a different way, in terms of the passion, but in terms of just having a ball, I think those Wasps days, and it was right at the start of. I mean, we hadn't been professionals for very very long, had we? Hask? So there was still that that mix of guys like Lauren who did wanted to keep the amateur days alive. So just a lot of drinking, a lot of partying, and probably a lot more than I don't know.
Yeah,
what's it like now? Is it still the same?
Yeah, it depends on your coach. So I think we were lucky with Sean and Gats both
Probably how we were winning.
Yeah, I mean, and I think
gotta back it up.
I think you'll win. But I genuinely was put down. If I hadn't had Sean and Warren as my first coaches, I never would have ended up the player I was, or had the career I'd had, because they were super accepting, but they wanted you to go really hard. We've talked about what Gats was like, and Sean taught me to be physical. Sean showed me that defence could be like a weapon. It was unparalleled. But they also wanted you to have a personality and wanted you to have a good time off the field.
Yeah.
So they would actively encourage you, wouldn't they? They'd be like, right, we're going to go on a win. We're going to do this. We're having a talk. Buses full of piss. We're going to have a few drinks on the way back. They would actively love that. But then you'd have to front up 2 days later. Yeah. So they were crazy days. I think some coaches, don't encourage it. I said, at Saints this year we had lots of socials, not necessarily drinking related ones, just dinners out, different things. So I think they do happen, but certainly in those early days, and I think you're exactly right. And I've said it before in interviews, when I look at the senior players that we had, just all the personalities, the different things, the chat, it was amazing those days, really. And you take it for granted that we got so lucky.
Yeah, you do, and I think you look at the athletes now, and I look at Maro Itoje and Joe Laundrie, and I'm not, I wasn't anywhere near those guys in terms of the nick that they're in, and you could get away with it. I think you could get away with a bit more just being on, just being on pure talent.
What was the best rugby you ever played? What was the best condition you ever got yourself into? Was Wasps or? Mate,
it was never very good. Never very good.
Oh, come on! I mean, you've got a good collection of winners'
medals. I
medals.
missed out on those Samoan genes where guys can just look at weights and put on muscle. So I always had to work quite hard.
Were you on the field in the European Cup final when he made his break for glory and didn't score?
Yeah, I was.
What do you remember of that?
We were on at the same time. They replaced the back row. We both came off the bench.
What do you remember? Because he talks about it regularly. As
when you did all the way,
did everything but score.
You get ankle tap just before.
Yeah, 5 minutes before the thing. Because I was like, oh my god, it would have been the greatest try of my career. Thanks for bringing it up again.
Just interested to get a player's perspective from those.
That was the 30 seconds directly afterwards when the baller moved on, and I think it went past, and Josh Lucy came in. I'll clear out the ruck that you were in, and Josh Lucy, I don't know if you even felt it. I think he just missed you or skimmed you over the top of the head. He came in and he's like flipping past it and went to hooked you in the head. Yeah. That was the standout moment that I remember.
What, because he reckons he was on for the pass?
Yeah.
I watched it back. I was never going to be able to pass the ball. And
always popular with your teammates.
Yeah, Josh Lee, which is weird because Josh Lucy won the most likely to get shot by your own side award 10 years in a row. Yeah. And I remember you telling me this. Yeah, he went to uppercut me in the head, which should have passed it. I was like, fuck off, Josh. I left you behind, mate.
Did you ever win that award?
Of course not.
No.
Of course not. Never. Not
He was
even close,
retired
mate.
in
Not
Josh's
even close.
absence. I want to ask you about Samoa as well, playing for Samoa, because we're going to come on to the other stuff as well. But how proud, abiding memories. Did you feel as if playing for Samoa, you were playing with one arm tied behind your back almost because of all the things that have come out subsequently and that you're campaigning for?
Yeah.
Or were they the great days of international rugby, 2 World Cups, close brothers?
Yeah, sort of a bit of both. I think, obviously playing international and representing your family, your heritage is, particularly when it's, when you're not getting paid for it, is, it's got to be for pride. And obviously that was a big part of it. When you're young, you don't realise that you're playing with one arm behind you, tied behind your back to put in those sorts of words. You just sort of, you like to think it's all everyone on a level playing field. You don't know what the opposition's got and what you don't have when you're playing. You don't know that other teams have had 4 weeks of preparation leading into a World Cup and we've only had 3 days. You just don't know these things. And then as you get a bit older and wiser, and you sort of and you've been in a professional environment yourself, and you realise that actually the level of going to play international should be a step up, and then sometimes it's a step down. That could be it gets more and more frustrating as you sort of get on in your career. But no, I mean, I've got I love my time. It's one thing now that I'm sort of 3 or 4 years retired, that I often have dreams about still playing for Samoa. I think it's something that that you don't realise how lucky you are to actually do that and play in World Cups and play in an international jersey until it's gone. But I think now I guess my what I see as my sort of role is and every player wants to do this, where it's playing for England or wherever. You want to leave the team in a better place than when you took it up. And
your last game for Samoa was at Twickenham, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
You played in that one as well, was it?
Was it? Yeah.
28-9 or something.
It was. Yeah,
You wore the
It was
red
in
kit, and
2014,
there's an amazing
these guys
picture at the
yeah.
end with you, both teams in a huddle.
Yeah.
And am I right in saying that was you went on? You were threatening to go on strike before
We
that
were,
game?
yeah. So we were really close, actually. We didn't make the decision to play until the morning of the game.
Is that right?
Yeah, we didn't really tell anyone because we didn't want they were threatening to pull us and actually replace our test with the Barbars if we hadn't made a decision on Wednesday. So by the Wednesday we said, yeah, we'll play. But we were still in the backgrounds. We were still like, flip, we're not getting paid. So I think we got paid the equivalent of £250, £300 to when it was a sellout Twickenham. Not to say that you want to look at what your opposition are getting, but we sort of, I think that week there'd been a new collective bargaining agreement for the England players, and they were getting, I think, in excess of 10 times the amount that we were getting paid. But more so was looking at at our administrators of the game, the Samoans, and saying, how is it allowed to, because they're ultimately the ones that are responsible for that for that divide, because they're the ones that negotiate the deals. So there were guys, we'd given a report 3 weeks before by one of the accountants who had been sacked by the Samoan Rugby Union, and in that sort of detailed £750,000 going missing, being spent on 5-star hotels by board members, all sorts of stuff, drink ups, and we just felt like we needed to, we had a senior players meeting. We said, look, we can either brush this. It was from 2000, the fundraising from the 2011 World Cup. Yeah. So we'd gone out and fundraised. We'd pushed wheelbarrows down our high street in Samoa, and the public had filled them with cash. We filled wheelbarrows up sort of 3 or 4 times over. Went back, emptied them into the back of a pickup. Came back at the end of the day, and the pickup was gone. No one had seen where it had gone. So these are the sorts of things that we just and that sort of came to a head in 2014. We just we were provided with it was all sort of hearsay until we were provided those documents, and David Lemmy was a captain at the time. Murray Fasavalu was vice, and I was in the senior players group, and I sort of spearheaded that movement to really try and talk to World Rugby and our union about those issues, because obviously the captains were trying to get the guys in game mode. So one of us had to put our hand up, and I guess what I'm doing now is a continuation of that. Really, in the end of the game, we played. But yeah, that was my last game. I sort of got branded as a troublemaker after that, and you sort of knew, you sort of, you're first through the glass, over the wall's going to take the bullet really. So, but I was at the end of my career and I was in a position where, as I said earlier, you want to leave the jersey in a better place, in the team in a better place than when you first put that jersey on, and that was sort of the way that that I thought I could do that. And I was probably the most expendable. I was, in terms of the team sheet, I was probably the worst player in the team. So it's got to be someone. Come on.
I tell you what we're going to do. Because you've led us into what the second half of the show is going to be very nicely.
You're watching the House of Rugby on Joe, together with Guinness.
Still to come, we're going to continue our conversation, and I think it's about to get quite interesting with Dan, and the boys are going to tackle a Pacific Island-related perfect pour. You're going to Fiji next week.
I am.
For Billy's wedding.
Boom.
Fiji
and then Tonga for the wedding.
Oh, Tonga for the wedding.
Tonga
of course
for the wedding,
what am I talking about?
But now I'm going to go back to Fiji. I've never been. I'm desperately excited.
Get some notes on what to do. First, though, here's something else that you might like from Joe.
Nice one, guys. Swanee's Cricket Show, then. What is it all about? Well, it's a new podcast from Joe with me, Nick Bright, and the man himself, Graham Swan, because it would be so weird if you weren't here and we called it that.
Good point. And it's going to be great. We've got all the biggest names. We've got the best games, Ashes, World Cup, inside gossip, all the scoops. It's got everything.
And also some stories from you, I'm hoping.
Absolutely. I'm throwing people under the bus. All of you. You won't sleep in your beds, Jimmy. Cookie, Broady. Good luck, lads.
He's calling them out. Right, remember to subscribe to this because we're coming at you every single week, but we should let the nice people get back to their podcast now.
Yeah, sorry about the ambush.
Thank you very much indeed to Swanee, and I hope the new show is going extremely well for you guys. That launched yesterday, actually, and apparently it's a lot of fun. I haven't listened to it yet, but we talked about your cricketing prowess before. You any good at cricket?
No, rubbish. No. My little boy's just started, so
is he?
I'm quite looking. It's quite a nice thing for kids to get into. They're away all day.
Off spin?
Or sometimes for 5 days. I don't know, mate.
I think leg break. Don't know.
Yeah, mate. Fielder,
yeah. Left, right, out.
You'll be a wicket keeper.
Don't forget TKO as well this week, where Chris Lloyd and Carl Frampton are in New York with producer Si. Talking to Anthony Joshua before he fights Andy Ruiz in Madison Square Garden. Subscribe to both now via YouTube or iTunes. Back to you, Dan. So there are so many different places that we could start this. Can we first of all just begin with the documentary on Rapeni? Because I think a lot of things will fall off the back of that.
Yeah, of course.
Fiji. So as we record, it's actually, it's 8:20 now on Tuesday evening as we record this, and it has gone live at 8 p.m. The new documentary.
I've got to hit the button.
You've got to hit the button. So it's going to be going live as soon as you could. We could do it live now. Press the button. Tell us a little bit about the documentary. Tell us a little bit about the story. Tell us a little bit about why you're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, initially we set out to make a documentary. It was just going back 12 months ago, and really looking into some of the stuff I was talking about earlier, the governance, the perceived corruption or mismanagement of our unions, some of the challenges that the unions face, with World Rugby policy, but really just answering the question: can the Pacific Islands survive professionalism? And there's a lot of, as you say, there's a lot of sort of spin-off. Topics from that. Eligibility we look into. So, you've got Charles Piertel, who's probably the highest paid player in the world now. Hasn't played for the All Blacks for 4 years, but can't play for Tonga, his country of heritage. So some of those sorts of things. Again, the influence of politicians in our unions. We've got in Samoa, our chairman is the Prime Minister. I just saw him last week. He was at representing Samoa at the World Rugby Council. What influence and what impact that has, on
You've actually sat down and interviewed him, haven't you?
Interviewed him, yeah. Went over to the islands. Yeah, tough. I mean, our culture's all about respect. And it's not based on what you do; it's how many grey hairs you've got on your head.
Right.
And so having those conversations with somebody high profile, he's not just Prime Minister. He's got a lot of chiefly titles, which are probably more important in Samoa than the official Western titles. So it was hard. I mean, having those conversations. I didn't tell my dad about it. My dad was in Samoa with me, and I didn't tell him about it just because he gets quite nervous about those sorts of things, and has an impact on the family. Has had an impact on the family when you ask questions of the elders. It's seen as disrespectful.
Wow.
So,
how does that then manifest itself? I mean, is there when you say he gets nervous, is that because of repercussions or because he's worried for you?
Yeah, and more reputation, I think. Just you just sort of, it's acts of service in the islands, and not again adhering to that hierarchy that you get that respect. So
is it a bit like the Perpignan case where suddenly people don't want you in particular, in your family, like, oh, he's a bit of a troublemaker, or we're not going to serve you here, or you can't come there. Is it reached that stage or not? No.
Not quite. I think I was actually surprised when I got to Samoa, because I thought it was going to be that way. And actually at points I was like, flip, am I going to get out of this guy's office? Because you're having to raise tough conversations with him about all those areas of the corruption in the union. Actually, ultimately he oversees it all. So you're pointing the finger back at him. It was I came out and tough in a lot of ways, but hopefully we've got to confront these sorts of issues if we're going to move forward and actually start to realise the potential that we've got as nations. I don't think we've lived up to it.
Okay. Do you feel you're making progress, or do you feel you're banging your head against a brick wall?
Bit of both. Again, I think what is progress? We made a push over the last year to really get more influence around the World Rugby Council. Yeah. Up until 6 months ago,
and you've had success recently.
So Fiji and Samoa, we launched what we called the Seats at the Table campaign, and it was based on I think all of the Tier 1 nations having 3 votes at the council each. And then again, there's a hierarchy. So some of I think Japan, Argentina, and maybe Romania, there was a few of the Tier 2 nations that had one or 2 votes.
Yeah.
And then you had the Pacific Islands, who provide 20% of all professional players, over a quarter of the players at Rugby World Cup, who didn't have any influence at all, apart from through our general seats in the Oceania Council. So you had the situation where effectively we were providing a quarter of the players and had no influence in the way that the game was being shaped, which had a knock-on effect on all of the areas that I've just spoken of. When it comes to the World Rugby, the policy on eligibility, for instance, that is voted by the World Rugby Council. The funding, the lack of finances, so it comes back down to what's being voted at that council. So we've got Fiji and Samoa, we've got 1 vote each. Again, it's a start because everyone else has got 3. So we need to be continuing to push for that equity. But it is a start.
You've butted heads in the past with World Rugby. I know I actually watched an interview probably about a year ago you did on Sky where you were sort of discussing it with Brett Gosper, who again, the interest of balanced argument is obviously not here to offer a response, but in terms of World Rugby, do you feel you're making progress in that regard? I mean, now that you're on the council, has that had an impact, or is there still a lot more that you're campaigning for that is slow in coming?
Yeah, I mean, on Brett Gosper, I guess there's one final interview. We've interviewed everyone that we want to for the documentary. The last person I want to interview is Brett Gosper himself, because we need to give them that sort of point of view. But I guess from a Pacific Islands point of view, it is a bit of a worry. Particularly the ways go, we've had all the World League conversation come up, and from what I can see, it's basically based on the finances of the game and trying to generate cash. The problem is, we don't have the audiences in the Pacific Islands for that to ever be viable. We're not going to bring loads of money to the table. But we do, what we do have is our player strength and the potential there. So it's got to be, there's got to be a way that's sort of quantified. Again, I know it's not easy, and if you look at anything, I read a lot about the game now, and even the RFU is struggling financially apparently, and I don't know. Again, I'm not privy to to the ins and outs of that. But if the RFU is losing money and they sell out Twickenham and for every game, then how are we going to make money in Samoa when we've got a 10,000 seater stadium? Everyone's not very there's not the expendable income that there is over here. So it's just I understand that there's it's a difficult situation, but by just sort of isolating and setting up a competition that's going to ring fencing it and saying the top 10 teams are going to play each other for the next 3 years or whatever the model is, I don't think is the answer, because if we're talking about growing the game, surely there's got to be that path. It's like the Premiership, and the similar debate around the Premiership and locking out the Championship, I guess. But when it comes to the World Game, if we are and this is the difficult. If we're going to promote the values of rugby, and those values are inclusivity, respect, equality, then that's what it is.
Yeah.
But I don't see, unfortunately, and again, this is from the outside, I just don't see those values being lived by the World Rugby Organisation in terms of some of the decisions that they're making.
Yeah. You never played in the Pacific Islands, did you?
Never.
How many years of professional? 12?
17.
17?
Yeah.
Okay.
Half seasons I've had, yeah.
Amazing. And is that a regret, given where else you had
I'd
played?
love to. I would have loved to. I'd never understood, some of my favourite games, and obviously some of the most challenging games were playing against the Pacific Island teams. I always, when you play the Six Nations a few times, you like, playing Ireland, playing Wales, playing Scotland, playing France, you love those November tests, because you get to play the likes of New Zealand, South Africa. But, there was opportunities to play Fiji, Samoa, and I played the Pacific Islanders team as well. There was some big moments, but we never toured there. I never understood that. And interesting with Dan, because obviously I knew him as a player, and then kind of obviously I played against him in that game against Samoa, and then I saw the bits and pieces were coming about, and I, from an outside point of view, I thought it was very brave because of my experience having played around the world and have got friends from Samoa, Tonga, Fiji, understand their different cultural systems. To speak up in that culture is a very hard thing to do. It is very hierarchical. If you're, you even see it with some players in terms of the older brother, the respect they have. Boys are always full of stories about the generosity in terms of, if you've done well, then you have to look after your family, you have to look after your friends, and in some of those islands, it's if they want to come in and take something, they'll take something, and you don't. If their mum says, give that to your cousin, you give it to your cousin. There's no arguing about it. And when Dan came to Wasps actually and visited, and I had a catch up, I was like, Dad, how are you? And he started telling me about what he was doing, and I think he started talking to all the players and explaining the amount of pressure that some players have on them that I'm sure will come on to with their financial requirements. I think there was one guy he was saying that was responsible for like 130 people in the village, and that nobody talks about.
That's true. That's real.
Yeah. I think he was the only one with a job in his whole village, really. So yeah.
And everyone had their hands in the till because culturally that's what we had to do. So, but when Dan was explaining to me, and I think we'll cover parts of the Rapeni documentary, was that actually, we all know. I mean, I know too individually that the Islanders are the best players in the world. The individuals, the talented, they can do things that we could only ever dream of physically. But actually, there's a kind of real undercurrent that I wasn't aware of, and I learnt more sitting next to Dan, and kind of came away going, I can't believe that. So that's why on other House of Rugby shows, I've been quite vocal about it, and been vocal with Ben Ryan, because I think. People don't speak about so much, and I think there's a cult. We've talked about men's generally inability to admit they've got problems, to admit about mental health. Then put that in a culture where hierarchy, and you don't talk about your feelings, you're not overly expressive. I don't want to be fair, I don't want to talk out of turn, but you ask how everything's going, everyone's like, they're fine, but actually they're funding all these people. They've got so much pressure on them. They go into a culture where, in that Rapeni, couldn't speak English. Didn't know what he was doing, never used to get a TV license, never applied for anything. He'd only ever seen $5, $10, $20, and somebody's suddenly given him, $200, $500, $1,000, not knowing what to do with it. And kind of being put out the wilderness and sort of left alone. It was really moving for me. And then seeing that actually we're playing a game at Twickenham, we're earning X amount of money per game, and these guys are getting nothing, and that it's entering into a country and then just disappearing. I think, there's the state of world politics, let alone rugby policies, is pretty much a mess at the moment, where, the odd voting systems and weird situations where, people get weird representation where you can vote for something but actually not win. I don't get it, but I think in rugby we have an opportunity to balance things out a bit better, and make it more fair, especially when so many of the players that come from the Islands are such an integral part to every single team and are the best players. Yeah. I feel that I didn't realise, how many of the problems guys were having with drink and having, different cultural elements that was really affecting them. But you would never know as a player, because people don't talk about it. You get a team, they turn up and play on the weekend, but you have no idea what's happening, 5 to 9 as opposed to 9 to 5.
Yeah. You are director of the Pacific Rugby Players Association. Is that now an official organisation, or is that a sort of...
it depends what you say, official.
Do you know, is it recognised by World Rugby and...
We have conversations. We're not under the World Rugby funding. Yeah. So I think.
So you're self-funded.
So we're self-funded. Yeah. So the quite a few of the players' associations now, because all the money is with the governing body, you have to go there for the funding.
How do you fund
governing bodies? We wanted
sponsors or player funding?
Through commercial partners.
Okay.
So Mitsubishi UK have been great for us. Skins, compression. Yeah. So really, and again, those are businesses with chairman or the MD at Mitsubishi was very good friends with Leslie Van der Koller. So he had seen some of the struggles that he had gone through, exactly what Hask was talking about, particularly at the end of his career. So he was just passionate about coming on board and doing something about that, really. So so we're lucky. There's a lot of goodwill for Pacific Islanders in the UK and across Europe. So we just try and harness that, really.
Okay, so 2 questions at this point. Tomorrow you're off to Lord in France, a 5:30 start.
5:30.
Channel Tunnel, driving down. Tell us what you are doing down there in your role within the organisation.
Yeah, so when it comes to the Pacific Island, I guess just to sort of to paint the scene, we've got 400, close to 500 players in Europe now of Pacific Island descent, playing either professionally or semi-professionally. Probably just under 100 of those fall into the top 14 or the Premiership. Those players are pretty.
It's only 100.
Give or take.
Yeah, give or take.
But those players are looked after pretty well. They've got representation from the RPA here. They're members of the RPA, and their clubs are, have got team managers. They've got the support around them to thrive. What we really wanted to get to with Pacific Rugby Players Welfare is those guys that are chasing the dream, who'll come over to to play in the Federal, the national leagues in France. Or maybe Spain, Romania, Portugal, Russia now. We've got growing populations in those sorts of countries, Italy, and really providing the support that you probably wouldn't get. When you're at the top, your agent picks up your phone call whenever you need him. When you're earning your agent nothing, or you don't even have an agent, that's when these troubles can come on.
Can you elaborate on some of those? Because there've been some quite high profile incidents of players who have who've suffered immensely. Ultimately, in sort of taking their own lives in that sort of circumstance.
So we've had a number of tragedies over the last sort of 4 or 5 years. I guess that's really what springboarded us to set up, and myself and the other senior players here in Europe to set this organisation up. And really start addressing those particularly around the mental health issues, the depression, which stems from cultural, social isolation, loneliness, financial pressure, over reliance on alcohol and other drugs. So really trying to deal with those issues, but really trying to get into and educate our players and provide them with bespoke support services. So we there are mental health services available to players, English players, so wherever you're from, but again, we wanted to set something up that was specifically for using people that have got a rapport with Pacific Islanders, who know how to connect with them, understand their backgrounds and issues, so they can break through. Because again, what Hask was saying, so true. The guys are, if you don't know how to get through to them, they'll just say yes. I'm all right. That's not just a Pacific Island thing. That's probably a male thing.
We've talked about that.
There are ways to break through that if you've got the cultural understanding. So that's a big thing. I guess to come back to Lord, rather than going, and again, none of us are doing this. None of us are getting paid. We're all volunteers with Pacific Rugby Players Welfare. So rather than we don't have the funds to be able to go around to visit 400 players, so we bring them all to us. So this year we're doing it for the first time. It's called Pacifica Unite, and we're doing it in Lords, and I think we'll have about 250 players descending on Lord. Lord for a number. Lord is I don't know if you know about it. The spiritual capital of France. Which again, given all the Israel Folau stuff, is the timing of it all is quite. Bizarre, but
pure coincidence, I'm sure.
But we'll be running. We'll obviously there's the element of bringing people together just to socialise, building those connections, so that they know that there's, so that they can build those relationships with the people who've been, walk their journeys. But also, actually, we want to tackle some of these things. So we'll be running workshops on the entrance and exits to the game. So the cultural differences coming in, and also guys transitioning out. We'll be talking about mental health. One of the Fijian players' wives is a trained psychologist now. She'll be running a workshop specifically looking into these issues of depression and actually, trying to confront them.
Big Henry Tuanang is taking care of the catering.
Big H there, Big Chief. Is
saw him
bringing down,
today
cooking 8 pigs at once.
I saw him. Is it Stade Marcel? I saw him today on his Instagram. He's cooking 8 pigs. It appears in the middle of the stadium that there's an area where they look like they put sand down and put
8 pigs on the go
honey
already.
pit, or we call it umu and Samoa.
We
cook everything underground. So it's,
but they've done it.
So they've dug up the Marcel Michel.
they don't dig it, so we just do it overground and the state.
So they put the sand down on the floor, not to mess it. Put all the charcoal and coal and wood and everything. And I saw they've lit it. They had the pigs on it. They cover it because normally they bury it underground. I've never had actually.
Have you not?
I've never had one.
You have to come over to Lord.
I know. I'm not sure after Israel. I've been a bit vocal about
tomorrow, mate. We'll do it 30
I've been a bit vocal about the Israel Folau thing, so maybe I might not be well. I like to work with open arms.
Oh, mate. Well, that's an interesting one.
Because what I was going to ask, I was going to come on to that, but you posted quite a strong topic, if it's fair to say, a response to the Israel Folau situation. Can you just elaborate for those who perhaps didn't see your social media post in the aftermath of the Folau situation?
I guess for me, the thing that frustrated me most about all that, and continues to do so, is the fact that everyone's sort of been, thrown into the same sort of category, and actually, think, oh, you're Pacific Island, you must think this way, and actually, it's not the case at all. I've spoken to talk about Henry Tuilangi. One of their, and we've got the whawhawhine. It's a 1 in 10. And you'll see it when you go out into Tonga. 1 in 10 males tests to being whawhawhine, which is you call it, I guess, transsexual or transgender here in the UK. But it's a totally accepted phenomenon in our cultures. So actually, we are very, very tolerant when it comes to to sexuality, and I think there's been a lot misconstrued, really, and that's to do with the heavy influence of religion and the church. It still does play a big role in our lives, but actually, when you go to the islands, and you'll only be able to do that by going to the Pacific Islands, and this is again my bugbear with the fact that that the Tier 1 nations don't really ever tour the Pacific Islands, is that the fans, the people that are commenting and saying, Billy Vunipola is, homophobic, all that rubbish. Go to the islands, go and live these, walk these guys' shoes, and actually see how our communities live and are embracive, and how 99.9%, walk out our faith, our Christian faiths.
How important it is, though, culturally, from day one.
And you'll see it's very different to what one person has posted, or one line and one post is. It frustrated me that.
But that's what people didn't, and that's when I wanted to be clear with why people said, "Oh, you didn't jump on any other kind of atrocities." Like, it's not. I wasn't. It was just because someone said something that was in particular I didn't like. But culturally, I've seen every single 90% of the islanders I know. Religion has played a huge part for them from culturally from birth to now. Some act on it more than others, and it is a different mindset. But not everyone believes that similar mindset. So it's a bit of a bizarre, because you can't. Unfortunately, now I was part of it, but trial by social media, it kind of gets lost in context. And out of all the subjects in the world, politics, you can have a debate. You can't debate about religion. Everyone has a conversation about religion and then goes, "Oh, I'll just back off and reverse here." When you have a meeting about a crisis meeting, you have qualified people, and you always seem to have a religious bit, like, what you're qualified in the Bible, like, what are you? But it's such an important thing. You can't. It's bizarre, really, because it was never to be intended like that. But I'm desperate to go over and see it, and I wish we had more opportunity, because I reckon I know so many people from. I mean, they might deny knowing me if I turn up to Samoa and I was like, "Dan, Tuolangi's like, get that guy away." But hopefully with Billy, because I've been invited to the wedding, we should be sweet.
Around. There's so many different places to go. I want to pick up on the Rapeni documentary, because anyone who grew up 10, 15 years ago watching rugby, he was an absolute superstar. Talk us through, if you can, the story that you have told. You've just been out filming with him. You released the documentary as soon as this show is finished. Tell us his story and why you think it's relevant now, why you went to find him.
Yeah, in terms of the bigger documentary and the governance and all that sort of stuff, it probably was a bit of a side issue, but I just thought that we're in Fiji. This is one of the world's, most famous names. When it comes to rugby, he's one of the most recognisable names. No one actually knows really about him. And I didn't think it would happen. because you say, we've had film crews go from France and England before to try and, and he's actually agreed to, and I've got all the way there and he hasn't turned up for the interview. So I thought, flip, it's probably, it's not a banker, but we'll try and, the way we'll do it is we'll go and hunt him down. So, so.
Is that email, phone? How do you get hold of Rapeni Thorny these days?
There's no reception in his village. There's
Right.
So luckily we had, I had a connection with one of his cousins through our cameraman Callum Drummond, who's actually English by chance, and that's the way we filmed it. We just it was just me and one cameraman, because with the Island Boys, they can be like the deer in headlights if you turn up with a crew like this. So literally we just wanted to keep it authentic, and we went there, and he'd lost loads of weight. I don't know if you remember him as a player. Towards the end he was he was around.
But I remember you saying on the documentary that that he turned up, 2 or 3 stone lighter and on time, which was not your expectations of him as a player. Now, I thought it was so amazing, and then to see how it all unfolded, I don't know what I thought life was like. I don't know what I thought, because he's one of those intriguing players that we look at modern players now and always talk about our wasted talents and people who didn't really achieve stuff, and then you see him and where he's come from and what he was doing and why he was doing it. It's like a lot of people judge from the outside. We talked about the Israel Folau thing, all these other things. You look from a window at a certain perspective, and you think you know it all. And that's the thing with professional sport. Everything's transitory. That's why 1 minute you're in the headlights, the next minute you've forgotten. No one cares, and actually people very rarely pry into what's happened. But for to see Dan do that and to actually see him living that island life, and 15 kilometres away from, something like 15k away from the nearest main road, and no signal, no nothing, and that he'd bought, he was talking about how he built his dad a house the first time he built it, and it was a big deal that it had a bathroom, an indoor bathroom, it had some bedrooms, it had everything, and he was one of the world's greatest players, and you're looking at this building going, that could not be more humble.
So what is his story now in a nutshell, from being
so again,
one of the greatest talents?
As Haskell said, full credit to Rapeni. He's on time now, and actually his work ethic since he's retired has really changed. I think he realises he probably frittered away his career, and he didn't have that. He's the first to admit that he didn't have that work ethic as a player. It was just pure natural talent.
Does he look back with frustration, or does he?
I think so. Yeah, I think there's I got the sense that there was a lot of regret when I was talking to him. He's open, which is a good starting point. We've actually we've linked a Just Giving page to the documentary to try and give him a second chance, and that's where the rugby family can hopefully get on board and actually help him to he'd like to do something, because he literally came at the end of his career, a 10-year career. He had probably a short career because he didn't really look after himself, and his reputation chased him around by the end of it. So he probably should have been one of those players that played a lot longer, but 10 years later, nothing to show for it apart from some good memories, which is really sad, and all too common in the Pacific Island communities. And really, probably in a lot of ways, rugby was probably the worst thing that could have happened to Rapeni. He was a fish out of water when he went out, when he left Fiji. He even talks, going out to Suva, which is the capital of Fiji. I think 50,000 people was scary for him.
So what's he doing nowadays?
France. He is he's farming. He's farming back at home, but subsistence farming. So just getting by, not making money off it. Just farming what he needs to to survive on. So so struggling by, and just trying to look at ways to make a living while staying in the village. I think he realizes that he's passionate about his village. He doesn't want to leave, but the problem being is there's just no way for him to make a living. So he's got kids in private school now. So trying to sustain their school fees while you're living in a village that's 20 houses is pretty difficult.
So watch the documentary, and there's a Just Giving page for Rapeni Thorny attached to the documentary.
There is, and I think the important thing, that is, we're not just going to be throwing him money because he's proven that that the skills aren't there for him to to be able to to deal with that.
Yeah.
So we actually want to put the support around him. He needs the support around him. So we'll be working with a group called the Earth Care Agency, which is a local company in Fiji, which specialises in helping set up organic and community sustainable businesses in the islands, and really giving them something that's sustainable, so that hopefully 5 or 10 years down the track, when we go back and film part 2 of this, we can actually tell a positive story as opposed to it being really sort of doom and gloom.
Because he seemed almost quite emotional. For a bit, like I thought a couple of times when he was talking, he was almost, I don't know, maybe that's his demeanour. I've not seen him interviewed a lot, but he almost looked like he was holding back tears a couple of times when he said, I messed this up, or I went there, and he was genuinely made out he was kind of fully, it's almost scared of going to places when he turned up not speaking any English. And then when he went to France, even worse. Yeah. Saying in meetings, just not understanding anything at all, and asking if you can speak English to him once he learned English, and they were like, no. We speak French over here.
I can already tell you that there will be a lot of people saying, please can we have a part 2 with Dan Leo. So hopefully you'll come back. I just very quickly want to ask you a couple of sort of quick fire questions. If the World League proposal goes through, how concerned would you be for Samoan rugby?
I'm already concerned for Samoan rugby. I'll be more concerned, but also for Tongan rugby, and I'd say no. I think I read that
because I think Fiji and Japan are included in that top 10
they are at the moment. But I read last week that to make it more viable, they're going to try and get rid of 2 teams, and it could be Japan and Fiji, which would just. I mean, it's similar to the Premiership. If you're in it, you're in, and you're in that club, and you can go from strength to strength. Anyone that's outside it is going to struggle, and I just think the Sharks are already circling in Samoa. We've got. This year they held the first NFL scouting camp at St. Joseph's College in Samoa. You've got all of the NRL teams now in Samoa and Tonga. And they're looking at the way that rugby league's gone in Tonga. Just recently has taken over as the national sport, a lot more supported, and just based on some of the small rule changes, and being able to get guys like Jason Tomolona, who already represented Australia and coming back at the ends of their careers and giving back. So at the moment, it's it seems like the tide's going one way, and it's out. Unfortunately, it's out for the Pacific Islands, or away. In terms of our players, away from our shores. The World League for me has got to be shot out of the water. It's not just for the Pacific Islands, but for the teams like Georgia. The teams that are really knocking on tier, and trying to push forward in terms of tier 1 status, being locked out of any sort of competition. Even if there is a promotion relegation, makes it very difficult. I just can't see it being the way forward. So what would be interesting is if they actually asked the players, asked the rugby players at the current squads, and had a conversation there. Again, it goes back to what Ben Ryan was talking about. I don't understand why all these things are not. Like, why are we not talking? I mean, I'm not a player anymore, but why would we not talk about? Like we said in the game, and that's Samoa game, that we wanted to donate some of our match fee, but we didn't. That was told I wasn't viable, it wasn't a good idea, or wasn't whatever. If you ask the players what they want to do, I'm sure you would get much more of a supportive answer, because normally rugby people are good people and they care about people, but we don't seem to ever do that. It seems to be these top line people who aren't related to anything. You just keep making, obviously it's life's business, but I think there would be a surprise about how we could do things slightly differently. Just out of interest.
What do you need?
Jeez,
do you need money? Do you need a stronger voice? Do you need?
I think it comes back to it's probably sort of two-pronged there. I think obviously finances to really drive the the awareness around these issues, because I just genuinely don't think that most of the rugby public understand some of the challenges. It always sort of. When I went to watch Wales versus Tonga this year, and sitting in the crowd, and when they spanked Tonga, it's like I I look across. I just think, do they know who they're beating? You know, it's a country of 95,000 people. You go to you'll go to the Tongan Rugby Union. It's small. It's, you know, most people's garages are bigger than the Tongan Rugby Union. It's literally two laptops in the corner of a room. They don't even have a facility. They train in. They use school grounds for their you know, to train on. That's the level of disparity. But I just don't think people really know. And actually, if they did know, you know, of course that'd make a difference, you know, because that's the spirit. That is the spirit of rugby. You know, you look after the little guy. That's, you know, that's you look after your halfbacks, you know, and that's, you know, I think everyone wants to do that. So there is a chance through Pacific Rugby Folau as well, you know, to help us drive this awareness. But really, you know, I think you know, really continuing to push for that governance side. We need to clean up our own unions, because our unions aren't good enough as they stand to be able to have these conversations. So,
World Rugby now taking a more active role in Fiji, Samoa, and Tonga in terms of the distribution of the funds that they put in. Am I right in saying that there's now an official? I think I'm right in saying that.
Yeah, so,
certainly in Fiji, there's you
so
have to have it everything you spend, you have to have countersigned by a World Rugby representative.
Yeah,
is that right?
to a certain level, definitely with the HPU, with the high performance units. There is that. There's, I mean, every World Rugby sort of, you know, union is they like to call them sovereign unions,
right?
Unions, which means they have a certain amount of, you know. I'd like to push for that. That's what we'd like to see happen. Is actually, you know, a real push for transparency, particularly around the accounting. And actually, you know, for us to be able to sit at the top table in terms of that council, we need to be pushing, you know, for greater, you know, for.
Well, you have to submit your accounts and stuff to World Rugby. They have to be checked.
You have to get World Rugby to sign off what you want to spend.
Yeah, and those are coming into you know, definitely in Samoa and Fiji. Those, you know, they're getting better as they go along, but it's just a long process.
I know there are two sides to every story, and I know there's a counterpoint to everything that we've heard tonight, but it is quite hard not to put your head in your hands at times, isn't it? And just sort of wonder where on earth is this all going to end up.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting about the fact that other sports are now, like they said, the vultures are circling and taking it, because, you know, if you look at the NFL, certainly the amount of Samoan players seems to be going up in that, you know, that arena, some of the best, and also, you know, money-wise, you can't compete with the NFL. But if they don't put things in place, you're going to end up losing so many quality players. And I think people take it for granted now. But if you actually looked at the amount of talented Pacific Islanders in the Premiership, in the top 14, you take them out, it'd be a very sad place. Because they're that good, and I think we take it for granted. And even the ones we didn't realise were, you know what I mean, which nationalities? Because so many, you know, played for New Zealand when half the Kiwi teams qualified for Samoa or somewhere else, isn't it? So I think something's got to happen with these things. It always comes down to business. But I just think, like, you know, Dan coming to talk to me at Wasps or talk to players was a real eye-opener, and I know that he's doing an amazing job. But I think the educating of other teams, other players, which I'm sure you're doing, and informing them and actually being aware of your teammates and understanding that, I think it's integral to having a better team. And you can't, a lot of times as a professional sportsman, your head's buried in the sand, and you're very selfish because that's how you have to be. But actually educating me, I just didn't realise. I'd heard stories about, oh, you know, I know that players were giving, you know, so much, money away. I mean, I remember talking to Marlon, who said every time he goes back to Samoa, it's like either his mum or dad would drive him along a certain road where all the houses were that other players had bought their family. It was constantly like, that's, you know, Jerry Collins bought that there, and someone else bought that there, and someone else bought that. And I mean, and Marlon's like, Mum, but that kind of thing going on. I think once I understood that as a player and understanding why, you know, every time, you know, one of the boys goes back to the islands with a bag of kit and they come back with just a toothbrush because everyone's like, oh, you know, because that's the nature of it.
Yeah.
Once you understand that, you understand they're under pressure, and you understand that, you know, maybe if they're acting up or they've got a problem with alcohol or they're not looking after themselves, that's driven out of other personal stresses because you're trying to feed 130 people in the village, knowing that if you fuck up, then everyone's, you know, people don't eat or whatever. That's a horrible thing to have on your shoulders. So I think educating all the other players as well as trying to fight the good fight, I think it's so important.
One more plug for Rapeni's Just Giving page on the doco. Are you still looking and open to more commercial partners?
Yeah, we are. And
Have we got a website?
We don't have a broadcaster for the full documentary either. So
Okay.
if anyone's watching this and is in that sort of industry, we'd love to put it out there. And the goal isn't to make money off it. It's just to get it, to get the exposure and really drive the awareness around all this issues, so that we can make a change as the rugby family.
Broadcast partner, commercial partners, and some love for one of the game's greatest. You're number one, all right, son. Do you remember that?
No.
Rapeni scored an outrageous try, and that was Tony Johnson's line. He got up, he celebrated with the one finger, and he just said, "You're number one, all right, son."
Was that in the Scotland game where he just did?
No, that was he was playing for the Blues.
Mate, that Blues team. When you look back at the Blues team, that's what inspired me to want to go to play
Howlett,
15.
Tuatupo,
Yeah.
King Carlos,
Mate,
Steve Devine.
They were unbelievable.
They were amazing. Xavier Rush. It is time for our Guinness Perfect Pour, our weekly test in 119.5 seconds, because that's how long it takes to pour the perfect pint. I'm sure you know that by now. This is James's idea. It's a word association game, and it's on the subject of Pacific Islanders. James is going to go first. You just say the first thing that comes into your mind. There are one or two curveballs just to brace you. Hask, you ready?
Yeah.
119.5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Samoa.
Talented.
Dan Leo.
Unit.
Toughest Pacific Island country to play against.
Tonga.
Toughest Pacific Islander.
I've said Henry Tuolangi.
You have indeed. Pacific Islander you'd least like to see running at you with the ball.
Trevor Leota.
Pacific Island you'd most like to visit.
Samoa.
The only one you're not going to this summer. Billy Vunipola.
Legend.
Mako Vunipola.
Hanging. Unbelievably talented.
Ben Ryan.
I was going to say Ginger, but he's much more than that to me.
Professor.
Yeah, just super knowledgeable, super interesting bloke.
You are 65 yards from a European Cup final try. Would you do the same again?
Yeah, well, I'd finish it.
One word to sum up falling just short.
Devastating.
Manu Tuolangi.
Power.
Does rugby exploit the Pacific Islands?
Yes.
Best Pacific Island player of all time?
Rapeni Thorny.
Better than Lomu?
A different kind of player.
Can a Pacific Island side win the World Cup?
With some funding, no corruption, and a bit of love, absolutely.
Strong. You happy with all of those?
Any
Any debate? No, you've got a very separate set. I'm just wondering whether James has done what he was meant to do.
No, I'm happy with his answers.
You're happy with his answers. Right, you ready?
Don't know if I'll be happy with mine.
Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Samoa.
Home.
James Haskell.
Just funny.
Toughest Six Nations country to play against?
England.
Toughest Six Nations player?
I'd say Rob Shaw.
Good. Player from the Six Nations countries you'd least like to see running at you?
Current Six Nations. Current can be past.
Current past?
Shane Williams for me.
Yes. Hot stepper. Lawrence Dallaglio.
Amazing leader.
Danny Cipriani.
Flair.
Ben Ryan.
Good friend.
Watching James almost, but not quite, score a European Cup final try.
Josh Lucy.
Greatest achievement in the game, either as a player or in what you're doing now. You can have either.
One word.
Oh, you can have 2 or 3.
Pacific welfare for sure.
Bill Beaumont.
Big bum.
I'm not a massive fan of World Rugby at the moment. I think Bill's all right. I'll give him all right.
All right, he'll take that, I'm sure. Does rugby exploit the Pacific Islands?
Yes.
Next big player to come from the islands who will dominate? The next Rapeni, the next Lomu.
His son, isn't it?
His son, yeah. Rapeni's got a son who's he's 11 years old. Apparently quicker than his dad was at 11 years old.
Wow, what's his name?
I think his name is Rapeni Thorny Booga.
Really?
Yeah, so if you're an agent, get him signed up.
Get him signed up. Israel Folau.
Hard done by.
Interesting. Can a Pacific Island side win the World Cup?
Yes. Not currently, but the talent's there.
I'm going to change the question. Do you think you will live to see a Pacific Island side win the World Cup in your lifetime?
Yes.
That is exciting. What I like about that is do you have a sense of optimism with everything that we've discussed tonight that the right scenario and situation will be found?
I think there's I think a lot of the issues that the challenges that are there easily fixable, and don't cost much. I think it's, you get a Super Rugby team set up in the islands or some sort of pathway, and you change your eligibility laws. Changing the eligibility laws to allow some of the players, the vast Pacific Island players who played for other countries, to come back and maybe play at either the end of their careers or just move into coaching and operational roles in itself would make a huge difference.
Wow! Because actually, if you were to do that, you could have George Smith, Mar Nonu, Charles Piatow, as you say. I mean, a whole host of players.
Israel Folau.
Is that the whole point of this? You just want Israel Folau back? This is all the big thing, is it? I see.
It's interesting, actually. And I know, I mean, it's worth...
Tonga could have Israel Folau and Charles Piatow, maybe not for this World Cup, but for the next one. Well, why not for this one? But,
that is funny. I don't know why...
Two players like that would make a huge difference to a team.
I do think it is one of those things when you play for a team and then you can't do it and that team aren't interested in you anymore.
Issa Nathewa played one game for Fiji and that was it. Yeah. And then wanted to go to the All Blacks. That's right, but then never played for Fiji again, did he?
Yeah, so no, he didn't. No,
I don't know why. It is bizarre. Surely the pinnacle of any rugby player's career is playing international. And if you play for a team doesn't want you, but another team wants you, and you're not just flitting around, you get one opportunity to change.
Yeah,
I don't know why he couldn't do that.
Samisa Rokundunguni played twice for England?
Yeah. Yeah, particularly if it's from a tier 1 down to a tier 2, because again, if we're talking about growing the game, those kinds of and a sensible stand down period. Again, for Charles, he said 4 years ago, all right, I'm not going to play for New Zealand again, but I'd love to play for Tonga one day. That was 4 years ago. Surely 4 years is enough of is long enough. If you can qualify, if Bundy Aki can qualify for Ireland for living there for 3 years, then surely you can unqualify after not playing for 3 years. Just chucking it out there.
Can you tack this onto the empire you're building with Dylan?
Yeah,
a more global operation.
Yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to. Okay. So when Dylan and I set up,
just quickly, have you heard that James and Dylan Hartley are going to set up a new? What is it called?
So Rugby play RPA over here, but obviously RPA is funded partly by England. So you can't fall out with your cash masters ultimately. So we're going to set up a rival thing. Again, there could be a little bit of corruption around some of the funding. Like you may see me driving in, getting driven around an S-Class, and there will be some 5-star holidays. However, we'd like to bring you on board and just do things properly in a good way. Do you know what I mean?
No, I think Dad's got enough on his plate with that kind of play in your sandpit.
No, so what do you mean? No, because when we get this billionaire investor that, again, hasn't called, you said you would, we're going to get some funding, we'll do proper welfare, and we'll just be outspoken, go play hardball, a lot of striking, a lot of this, and that, Yeah,
it is an issue, though. I think it is an issue that, and quite a major one, probably bigger than we think, is the integrity of funding for of player unions. I think it really is important, because it's if it's a player union, and any workers union, if you're funded by the industry itself, it's it can be a dangerous place, can't it? So, good idea.
Oh, yeah, I knew you'd be on board. See, you're laughing at it.
Business cards.
Yeah, we'll get sorted out. It's not the name. It's just the problem is that because people keep laughing at it. Well, you keep laughing at it.
I haven't seen any evidence yet to do anything otherwise.
Well, I don't know. I wonder if old Damien Hopley's quaking his boots shit.
I'd be very surprised.
Come on, Hoppers.
Genuinely fascinating, and I'm sort of repeating myself, but there will be a lot of rugby people who wish you the very best with what it is that you're doing, and that hope and people out there listen and that we find the right resolution. Do go and watch the documentary as well, which we're going to be pressing live in minutes' time. What's it called, out of interest?
So the series,
the whole series is called.
The series is Oceans Apart.
Apart.
The documentary will be called the Oceans Apart film, and the series is the Oceans Apart series. So it's what we couldn't fit into the documentary. We're releasing as a number of sort of series. The first being Rapeni Thorny Booga.
House of Rugby fans, you know what to do. Go and watch Oceans Apart. That is it for this week. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to the House of Rugby. If you like this week's episode, don't forget you can download our other episodes as well. fascinating tales with Ben Ryan in the back catalogue, and he's been talking about working with Pacific Islanders, of course, as he took Fiji to Olympic gold. We are a YouTube show and a podcast, as I'm sure you know by now. Don't forget to download and watch our boxing show, TK with Carl Frampton, and to subscribe to Swanee's cricket show as well, which went live today. Thank you to Hask. Thank you again to Dan. See you soon. We'll be back next week with Nigel Owens.
I'm not here next week.
Where are you? Oh, you're in Fiji.
Yeah. I wish I'm disappointed we could trail because I love Nigel Owens. I would have been awesome to get him on here.
Yeah, looking forward to that. I'll be back next week with Nigel Owens. See you then. Goodbye.
You've been watching the House of Rugby on Joe, together with Guinness. Drink responsibly. Visit drinkaware.co.uk for the facts.